Welcome to the 12th video in this seminar about using social media as an academic. After reviewing all of the positive things that you can obtain by using social media, it's time to pay attention to the bad and the ugly consequences of using social media in academia. Using social media is not a bed of roses. Of course, with collaboration networks, you can disseminate your work, you can reach the public, increase your visibility, but all of this can have downsides. Procrastination, fear of missing out, doom scrolling, social media fatigue, toxic dynamics, being taken for a science Kardashian, context collapse, and content discontextualization, criticism, trolling, and harassment. In this video, we are going to discuss all of this, and I'm going to try to provide some tools so you can fight these issues, and then I'm going to provide a balance to show you that even though there are some downsides, there are some disadvantages if you decide to use social media in academia, the benefits are going to outweigh those downsides. Regarding procrastination, I told you you should incorporate social media to your workflow, but reading Twitter is not working. And although it can be much more appealing writing a thread or a blog post than reviewing that paper on your stack, the thing is that producing social media content shouldn't take up too much time during your work day and much less taking time of your leisure time. What works for me? I told you once and again that I'm really poor managing my time. So I decided that I was not producing content for social media. I'm reusing and recycling content I'm already producing for my job to use on social media. This video is an example. I told you once and again that these slides were for a training activity in my university. The slides, of course, were in Spanish, but since for my job I need to deliver lectures in English for some courses, it was a really good practice for me to translate all of that. And having these slides in English is going to probably increase a little bit my visibility outside the Spanish-speaking academic world, so it's not that bad. And recording these videos is going to be useful for me also as rehearsal. So it's not that I'm producing content for social media, it's that I'm adapting things that I'm preparing for my job in ways that are beneficial to me. If you're able to manage your schedule, it could be wise to schedule some time for producing that content. So you could follow advice from the personal branding section on trying to produce content that is related to your area of expertise, related to your current research, and related to current affairs. If you're able to produce content covering all of that, it's going to be good for you and good for your personal brand. Binge consumption is a problem, right? If you don't have a healthy consuming of social media, particularly Twitter, you can feel fear of missing out, that constant feeling of you missing things, of you not being up to date, and that's a problem. Doom scrolling, that is constantly using your thumb, scrolling Twitter and reading things that are not going to make you feel better, but actually worse. And somehow you go on and you go on. And social media fatigue, that is a feeling of being overwhelmed informationally or emotionally because of using social media and having a need to simply move away from that, to withdraw from social media. You have two links there, okay? So, remember my recommendation for healthy consuming. Here my advice is to create topical lists so you can very quickly check tweets from accounts you're following for very specific reasons and using notifications so you don't miss tweets from really interesting and important to you accounts. If you do that, eventually you're going to stop consuming the timeline in a constant way. You're going to use it, or you're going to read the timeline when you have time enough and you don't have anything better to do, right? Cats. Everybody loves cats. Cats in internet are a phenomenon on themselves. And the thing is that cats have some curious behaviors, and academic Twitter sometimes is a bit cat-like. So sometimes when someone is talking about their own work, looks a little bit like this. And you may wonder, Dane, you told us we have to disseminate our work. You told us that it's not tooting our own horn. It's an obvious step in this second decade of the 21st century. Yes, it is. But one thing is disseminating your job, your work, talking about your research in meaningful ways that are useful and relevant for your audience, are standing up the novelties you are introducing and contextualizing that within a broader context. And another thing is leaking yourself in public, right? So you have to find a balance. Then another common behavior, when Twitter academics are tweeting about their friends' work, about their friends, or about sharing some event with their friends. So all of them are really humble, and they are really surprised to be sharing a platform with so many brilliant, smart rock stars, ninjas from academia. And the other people are saying, no, you rock, not me. I'm just a poor academic here. No, I'm humble. No, I'm more humble than you. Don't do that, right? Okay, you're in a panel. It means you're probably know what you're talking about. So don't do humble bragging. And finally, when Twitter academics are discussing with people that are not their friends, they disagree. So they are really grumpy about their science, and they are discussing in not really good manners. So please recognize these cat-like behaviors and don't imitate them, okay? Don't behave like cats on Twitter. Cats are nice, but you are not a cat. Don't do that. Now, year of the Lord 2022, and only 20% of academics have a personal website. You probably don't have a personal website. Well, it's normal. After all, the web is only 32 years old. It's too new to pay attention to it. The thing is that we can safely assume that having an active online presence, not a token one. I'm not talking about people that, yes, I have a Twitter account. Yeah, I think I tweet about twice in 2019. That's not being on Twitter. So having an active online presence is not going to become mainstream. Maybe it's going to be a thing for early career academics, but not for everybody. So you're going to find people that are going to tell you plenty of things if you decide to develop a full-fledged academic persona. They're going to first maybe don't understand that. Why are you wasting time on Twitter? Why are you wasting time recording videos for YouTube? Are you dancing on TikTok? They will tell you that you should spend your time wisely and in more serious things. And there's going to be people that may think or even tell you that you're not really that brilliant, that smart. Maybe you're just getting citations and your research is known because you are Twitter famous, right? Indeed, there is a kind of a joke index, the K index, that talks about the Kardashians of science. Kardashians of science are those researchers that, according to the author of that paper, are receiving much less citations that they were expected to have, taking into account their followers on Twitter, or rather, they have a much bigger follower base on Twitter than they should have because of their citations, okay? Of course, I told you once and again that Twitter metrics and citations have little to do. They don't translate nicely. And probably some of you even don't think that citations are such an important thing. But for people thinking about citations, people thinking about Twitter, people thinking about young people having a huge Twitter follower base and not them, that's going to be an issue. Indeed, you can visit this book. It's quite interesting, and it has this reflection, and it's saying that at this moment there are different ways to reward intellectuals that are able to engage with public. And the thing is that different intellectuals, different academics are going to have different skills to engage with the audience. And some of them are going to skip most of the traditional gatekeepers because they are great at using Twitter or YouTube or TikTok. And if you are skipping traditional gatekeepers that are beneficial to those getting the most from the status quo, that people are going to be annoyed. It's going to trigger suspicion and resentment, especially among those senior scholars that go to Twitter to get maybe 100 followers, even though they are a pope in their area. And then a PhD student has, I don't know, 20,000 followers, right? So what can you do with that? Well, Taylor Swift said it much better than me. Haters gonna hate. Shake it off. Now, context collapse and your content being discontextualized. The best thing to do to avoid that is stick to academic issues, avoid shitposting, humor, sarcasm, and irony. That is, be absolutely transparent in what you are saying, right? If you do that, probably you're not going to have those problems. Anyway, in case you feel that you want to be even safer than that, you may try one of those tools that I told you about that delete your tweets after some time. That way it's impossible for an old tweet to be taken out of context. Needless to say, some people are going to be criticized, mansplained, trolled, and harassed due to just existing in social media or appearing in press. Okay? If you're a woman or disabled, BIPOC, LGBTQI, that is any kind of person that is not the typical stereotype of an Western academic, you can have problems in social media. So, remember, you can mute conversations. I mean, you tweet about a piece of research and your notifications are blown with mentions of people trying to explain you why you are wrong. Mute that conversation and you forget about that. You can mute, block, and report accounts if they are not annoying but just but starting to harass you. You have a link there about Twitter report, and you can mute words and hashtags. It may be wise sometimes to protect your tweets, either provisionally or permanently. That is the lock. Your current followers can still read you, but they cannot retweet you. You have to, you can decide on each new follower if you're going to accept that person to follow you or not. And people that were not followers cannot interact with you in any way. So if being on public on Twitter is too much for you, you don't have to be on public. You can have a locked account. Maybe it's not the most useful way to get a wide audience, but it may be the healthier for you. Unless you really want to anybody reach you, don't have your direct messages open for anyone. Okay, you have to configure your direct messages so only people following you can send you a direct message. I suggest you reading this report, not the part on conducting risky research, but the part on protecting yourself from online harassment, right? Because risky research these days can be just researching about climate change, okay? That can be risky for some people. So read about protection. And in April, this book should appear. And from what I know about the author and some comments on this book, it seems it's going to be quite nice. So it can be of interest for you too. You need to be able to recognize sea lions. If you don't know what a sea lion is, you're going to learn very quickly. The idea is that, yes, you have to be polite and open to dialogue. That's true. You don't want to be rude and close to other people's ideas, but you cannot become a trolling target. And there is one kind of troll, which is the sea lion. And sea lions are always really polite, and they are always making important questions and playing devil's advocate, and they ask you to provide long reasoning about your points so they can go on asking questions because they are really interested. That's a troll. Okay, don't get confused on that. You don't need to deal with these people. Ignore them. Of course, we can skip all of these issues. We can forget about all of those downsides if we just close everything. We go to the booth and we live in this cozy cabin. But you don't need to do that. Okay? You don't need to do that. The thing is that from what I told you now, you may feel that in the end social media is going to look a little bit like this. You are going to be the girl, and some of your audience, not all of your audience, can behave like a guy. Okay? Being loud and too close for your uh, too close for you and trying to explain you things that you already know about and you simply don't want to engage with them. You can feel that this is social media. Social media shouldn't be this. Social media is a platform, right? It's a tool. You use the tool. So the thing is that you're going to use that platform to make yourself visible, to talk about what you please, and you're going to engage and discuss and argue with those people you want to, not with everybody, right? So it's a platform and you use it as you please. You don't need to justify your use of social media to anyone. So going back to Anubis, the thing is that social media can bring you much more benefits than downsides. Okay, if social media was going to be extremely bad for you with just a couple of good pieces, I wouldn't devote 5 hours to try to convince you. But I need to tell you the ugly truth about social media too. But the thing is that if you know in advance what the bad things can be, and you know in advance how you can deal with that, and you know in advance how you can take advantage of social media, you can get a fairly good time on social media, and it can be really useful for you. And this was the last section of the seminar. In the next video, I'm going to provide a brief summary, and I'm going to discuss a number of resources and people you might follow in order to learn more about all of these topics.